Ferguson on your left. And it looks like Darryl Kuehl on your right. Black White Pox versus Jeskai Control. We'll be underway here in round number 4 just a moment. Darryl will start off with a Scalding Tarn. Going to fall down to at least 19. And I'm a little saddened not to see Ancestral Vision. I am.
I mean, if you're playing this kind of deck, to have a good matchup against beatdown decks, you want Serum Vision over Ancestral Vision. Ancestral Vision is kind of nonsense against the decks that are trying to kill you fast. Serum Vision, on the other hand, very good.
Darryl Kuehl with the Serum Vision to start. He'll draw a card now, scry 2. Looks like both those cards going to the bottom.
There are 2 main deck copies of Anger of the Gods in this deck. Darryl is definitely gunning for aggressive strategies.
He's not messing around.
Yeah, I would imagine even with Nahiri +1 Emrakul, he's probably a dog in the control matchups. It's at least some concession there. But this deck list, multiple main deck copies of Anger of the Gods and Electrolyze. He is trying to beat the Burn, Zoo, Infect, Affinity side of Modern. Sulfur
falls in a passing of the turn. We go ahead to the Ferg, Andy Ferguson's way.
I don't want to take away too much of the spotlight, even though Kuehl's doing some different stuff with his list here, from perhaps my favorite player on the SCG Tour. And we should probably just remove the word perhaps, because he's my favorite player.
And Urborg.
Perfect mana.
Yeah, obviously. Permaz almost ready. Here's Eiley, Eternal Pilgrim. That's going to get hit by a Spell Snare.
Yeah. You may not know what your opponent's up to, but there's no way that card's in the deck by mistake.
Yeah. Might as well just counter it. You know, you don't even know how much better Spell Snare is going to be. You know, you don't know what you're waiting for to counter that spell. So we know there's Smallpox and a couple other options, but I like countering that with Spell Snare. For Kuehl, it's a Hallowed Fountain that enters the battlefield tapped, not interested in paying any life. Pass the turn back over to Andy Ferguson, who has drawn a Smallpox. You can see the lands for him, a Shambling Vent, now Marsh Flats, and that Urborg. Now Marsh Flats can tap for black mana because of Urborg being on the battlefield.
And Permaz is a surprisingly good threat against Kuehl's deck here. A lot of bolts. There are 4 copies of Path to Exile, so you can answer it that way, but a lot of his other removal is just 2 and 3 damage effects.
Liliana. That will resolve.
Perfect mana, can use that Marsh Flats to fetch up a plains whenever he's feeling like it.
Yep. Liliana going to tick on up. And we'll see what both players will discard. For Andy, Smallpox down. For Darryl, just an island.
So this matchup, perhaps more than any matchup in Modern, is where Kuehl is going to feel the impact of not having Ancestral Vision in his deck.
Yeah.
Ancestral is made for matchups like this. Attrition-based decks with a lot of discard. And Ancestral will be a huge weapon here if he had it.
A Steam Vents enters the battlefield on tap. Now here is Nahiri. And we had a feeling we might see this one over the course of the weekend, so we're going to take a good look at it right now because I don't think this is the last time we're going to see it. You see the Planeswalker there, 4 mana, starts on 4. And you said it starts with a lot of loyalty.
There aren't that many dedicated anti-Planeswalker removal spells. Most people try to handle Planeswalkers in Modern via bolts and creature combat. So Nahiri going up to 6 loyalty is very hard to get off the battlefield, especially because cards like Abrupt Decay don't touch it. And in 3 turns, it's Emrakul's attacking you.
Yeah.
Now, this is a lot of pressure on Ferguson right now.
It just doesn't take much time for it to get to Emrakul at all. So, you know, I was always kind of dubious. You know, we've seen Nahiri plus Emrakul become a thing. Like, you know, 1 Emrakul, and people can say it's kind of a free roll, but realistically, it's not. Like, if you draw Emrakul, it's pretty bad.
It is not a free roll.
Yeah.
Sometimes your opening hand has Emrakul in it. It is not a free roll.
But there will be a lot of situations where Nahiri just tick up, and the game ends. Ferguson's going to sacrifice that Marsh Flats now. You saw Liliana move on up. So Lightning Helix was the discard for Darryl. For Andy, the discard was a Zealous Persecution, which is a nonsense card in this matchup. Not good at all.
One of the problems for Nahiri plus Emrakul that I've seen is a lot of the decks in the format are very graveyard-centric, and looting away the Emrakul causes your graveyard to shuffle. So it creates some anti-synergies there with Snapcaster Mages, and if you're playing with things like Jace Vryn's Prodigy or Delve cards, that interaction comes up and can be annoying. But on the balance, I think it's a worthy addition for decks like this, especially, you know, you can see Darryl's strategy here. A lot of his main deck is devoted towards beating attacking decks, and this is his plan for matches where that's not what's going on.
Here's Permaz. Mana, not a problem. And this is a threat that can really just kind of check Nahiri, which is what its job is going to quickly become, assuming he gets to live for a little while.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on Darryl here to have a path because it requires multiple bolts to be able to get Brimaz off the table. And keep in mind, Ferguson has a Shambling Vent as well, so if he has a 4th land, he has multiple sources of pressuring the Nahiri.
Well, you said he needed to have a path, and he does. So path will take care of Brimaz.
And now, you know, Kuehl's probably hoping that Ferguson just dials up the Shambling Vent to keep him off the ultimate, assuming Kuehl has one of his numerous bolts or another removal spell. Looks like his hand is Snapcaster Mage, which can flash back Path to Exile. Ferguson, for as good of a start as he had here, will just be beat by Emrakul.
So let's take a look at Nahiri one more time. Let's see what exactly that ultimate does do, and it's quite the powerful one. So you search your library for an artifact or creature card, put it on the battlefield, then you shuffle your library. It gains haste, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So Emrakul's kind of the combo with this, but also, as you mentioned, Snapcaster Mage 2 as well, in case you've drawn that Emrakul or the Emrakul's been exiled somehow. You still get some good use out of this card.
You're facing down random ensnaring bridges. You know, if your Nahiri goes up to 8, it probably means your opponent hasn't been up to very much. And getting a Snapcaster Mage, using it, and then getting it back to your hand probably creates a huge advantage as well. So it doesn't just have to be Emrakul, but I suspect Emrakul is going to be good in this spot.
You see Liliana's going to tick up to 6. In response, Darryl will cast a Snapcaster Mage. He'll target something in his graveyard. Doesn't really matter what. The goal is just to get the last card out of his hand, and also, while doing that, defend that Planeswalker a little bit.
Yeah, my guess is he's flashing back the Spell Snare. That could trip up some response here from Ferguson.
Yeah, not a bad target.
But Ferguson's got to find a way to get the Snapcaster Mage off of the battlefield, get Nahiri's loyalty down, and then that's not even the end of it. That's just to survive this very turn.
I'm immediately impressed by Nahiri this game. I guess I just didn't realize how quickly that thing can shoot out an Emrakul.
This card, I think, has the chance to be the most impactful card in Shadows over Innistrad in larger formats. I think in Standard, it's probably less impressive than some of the other Planeswalkers, but in older formats, having access to a main deck disenchant, being able to Emrakul combo people as appropriate, fixing your draws, a ton of loyalty, I think this is going to be an enduring Planeswalker in Modern, and I think Legacy as well. I think we're going to see a bunch in that format too.
Another copy of Brimaz. Now, Patrick, I'm doing a quick check on how many permanents Andy has.
1, 2, and plus the 4 is 6.
It's well, it's not good. It's not good for Andy right now.
Brimaz.
Yeah. It's not. Andy's all set here. Andy's all set. Darryl Kuehl's going to win game 1 here over Andy Ferguson. Just got control. Up a game over black-white pucks thanks to the power of Nahiri.
Brimaz has a long and storied history on camera about showing up when the game is about something completely unrelated to what Brimaz is about.
That's unfortunate for Brimaz. You know, I remember the first time I saw Brimaz and I was like, man, this card is busted. You know, during my Kithkin days of playing, you know, white human decks and white creature decks, and all of a sudden, Brimaz is, it's obviously not a bad card, it's just nowhere near as good as you would expect given its text.
I mean, Brimaz is an excellent creature, but creatures that cost 3 mana and don't do anything when they enter the battlefield, don't do anything when they leave the battlefield, and don't have resistance against a lot of removal spells, you know, it's just hard for them to show up. That's how tournament Magic works.
All right, sideboards is where we're going to go. Andy Ferguson will be on the play, so we're going to start with him and his Surgical Extraction, Grabdigger's Cage, Zealous Persecution, a Fulminator Mage, a Core Firewalker, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Timely Reinforcements, 1 Rest in Peace, a Spellskite, a Leyline of Sanctity, a Pithing Needle, Ghost Quarter, and a Damnation. So a ton of different things that he has available to him.
Though none of it very well suited for this kind of matchup. I think the Pithing Needle is easy enough to bring in here, as is the Fulminator Mage, but the rest of the sideboard appears to me at least to be for different matchups.
On the other side of things here for Darryl, you're going to find a lot of 1s and 2s here as well. 1 Wrath of God, 1 Elspeth Sun's Champion, 1 Vendilion Click, 1 Grafdigger's Cage, a Lightning Helix and Izzet Static Caster, a Celestial Purge, and the 2 of Timely Reinforcement, Negate, Dispel, and Stony Silence.
I like the Celestial Purge in this matchup, and I also like Izzet Static Caster. You can pretty reasonably guess that Ferguson has Lingering Souls in his deck, so I think Static Caster is a fine card to bring in here. To me, what's the interesting question is, what do you do with a card like Elspeth Sun's Champion? Because it's definitely awesome if he's able to get on the battlefield, and Ferguson's deck clearly struggles with Planeswalkers, but is 6 mana just too much to ask for a deck that's going to be smallpoxing you and possibly bringing other land destruction effects. That, to me, is an interesting card. If it shows up, it's probably game over, but it's not the easiest card for Kuehl to cast, even under optimistic circumstances.
Well, that gives you an idea of the options there for both players. So, again, number 2 will be underway in just a bit. Andy Ferguson will be on the play. And when they do shuffle up, we're going to talk about regionals that is taking place a little bit later here in season number 2. You do see the playmat that's available for regionals right there on the screen. Nice full image for you. And the little goblin that's carrying something will be the token that you do receive. And its name is Ugh Not Again, the 1/1 goblin. You put it all together, and you can find out more information all about regionals and what we can expect here. Season 2, August 6th, 2016, you get the free and exclusive playmat and token to the first 200 players that do register. Now, we will have more information about the locations of regionals very soon at go.starcitygames.com/regionals, but gives you an idea of if you do attend, you get the sweet playmat, you get the sweet token of Ugh Not Again, and you could become the regional champion, which does play a huge role in the race for the Players' Championship.
Yeah, if you're trying to get to the Players' Championship or just qualify for the Invitational, Regionals is a great tournament. Also, just a lot of cash prizes, and as you see, those exclusive playmat as well. So we'll have more information on that event as we get a little bit closer, still a couple months out.
Though Andy Ferguson is currently down a game, we have not said that much about him during the first year here in 2016 of the SCG Tour. For Andy, it's been a heck of a year for him. He really put Bant Company on the map, did the 25-year-old from Cincinnati, Ohio. 4 open top 8s, no win just yet. Does have a finals loss, though. An avid baseball fan and has been to almost every ballpark in the National League. Cincinnati-style chili equals the best chili. Not quite sure. I don't have a lot of Cincinnati-style chili. I imagine that he's talking about Skyline.
Dude,
I think that means beanless chili. If it means beanless chili, I agree.
I don't know enough about the various distinct Ohio versions of food to know.
Okay, I think
this is your territory.
I think that means Skyline chili. And I think if that means beanless chili, I'm in lockstep with him. He's going to Georgia Tech for a master's degree in mechanical engineering. Is the magic man. So it's always good to learn more about your boy.
And standing invitation, if you want to take a trip to Petco or Dodger Stadium, Andy, get in touch with me. We can make that happen.
There you go. There you go. It's on Patrick. He'll pay for everything. So that's really nice of you. What a guy.
If he flew out, I would definitely pay for his ticket. The deal is he would have to hang out with me. He wouldn't be allowed to ditch me.
Oh, okay.
that would be the cost.
All right, fair enough. So he's probably out then.
Right,
yeah, he's probably out.
That might be a deal breaker. I don't know. Andy, think about it. Get back to me.
I hear Petco is lovely this time of year.
It's lovely every time of year. It's San Diego.
The baseball that's played there, not so much, but, can't have it all.
Just won the series in Chicago.
An avid Padres fan is Patrick.
Just spiked the doubleheader. Yeah. No big.
Yeah. Ferguson starting things off with just an Urborg. For Darryl, he's going to sacrifice a Scalding Tarn, fall down to 19, get a basic island, and perhaps we'll see a Serum Visions to kick off the game. A big couple of W's there for the Padres. I got to give it to you. I did not expect that to happen.
I wonder if a deck like Andy's could rationalize 1 or 2 copies of Heroes Downfall. It's kind of the type of thing he's looking to play anyway. He's just in the market for broad strokes removal, covers his bases against a lot of different stuff. And his deck does look a little vulnerable to Planeswalkers, as we saw that game.
Well, if Nahiri becomes a thing that people are doing with some amount of consistency, I think he's going to have to address that problem because he did not show the ability to take care of a card like that at all.
Yeah, Nahiri protected by Path and Bolts was just not something Ferguson could handle.
Yeah. A swamp here for Andy. And now it'll be, yes, the Asylum Visitor. So you see Darryl's going to take a look at this. We're going to do the same. New cards from Shadow over in Estrad. And there's a lot of different cards you could play in this spot, Dark Confidant, what have you. But Asylum Visitor, 2 mana, 3/1. So nice power to toughness here. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, which is what Andy's trying to accomplish with his deck, you draw a card and you lose a life. It also has Madness as well, so it plays pretty well with Liliana of the Veil.
Smallpox as well in some spots. Also, this deck has some pretty high casting costs. So it's not clear Dark Confidant something this deck can really handle. There's 3s and 4s floating around.
But if things are going according to plan for Ferguson, this thing's going to be on most of the games it's in. Yep. There's a Marsh Flats. And Ferguson will sacrifice that Marsh Flats, so perhaps white mana is on the way. Now, we have talked about his mana a little bit here, and as he does search for basic planes, this would be one of those instances where he cannot cast for mana. So the mana, as he demonstrated in Game 1, is relatively good, but it's not perfect.
Yep. And for a 2-color deck, he's pushing it.
Here is Lingering Souls.
Busted.
Very good Magic card. Going to be countered by Mana Leak. Half of it is dealt with by Darryl. Let's go Darryl's way. He'll draw a card.
Darryl's deck is pretty well situated to handle Lingering Souls. He's got Electrolyze and his static casters in the sideboard.
Here's a Serum Visions. Kuehl will draw a card. And now he'll scry too. We'll see where these cards do go. I think I agree with you on the whole. Even though Lingering Souls is, I think it's more of an annoyance than anything. I mean, it's obviously a very good card against control decks, but you mentioned Electrolyze, that'll draw a card. Anger of the Gods can sweep them all up in case there's a lot of them out there. You know, he's sitting pretty well against that card.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good card against control decks and a good card against slow matchups and a good card against decks that play a lot of removal spells, and Kuehl checks off all those boxes. But he does have a lot of reasonable responses to it. Not nearly as good against him as it is against a deck like Grixis, which really struggles to handle the card efficiently.
Lightning Bolt's going to take care of the Asylum Visitor. And now here's an Inquisition of Kozilek from Ferguson. Who wants to see what's going on. You'll find a Celestial Colonnade, a Nahiri, a Wrath of God, a Snapcaster Mage, and a Scalding Tarn. The only card that can be selected here by Ferguson is Snapcaster Mage, but picking up on this information about what he's got to worry about moving forward, invaluable.
Well, this is going to be the test for Ferguson. He's back in the same spot that we saw in the first game, where he's got to beat Nahiri backed by Protection, which is a Wrath of God in hand, and potentially Celestial Colonnades back to block. And it looks like he's very light on pressure.
Well, Lingering Souls is one route to go, so there are 2 spirits. That is a Shambling Vent, and now we're going to head over to Darryl. He'll draw. Looks like he picked up a copy of Anger of the Gods, and that's one that Ferguson does not know about. He does know about the Wrath of God that's in hand. So Ferguson is probably assuming I have to beat 1 mass removal spell, when in reality is now he's got to beat 2.
Yep. And does Kuehl have a Sacred Foundry in his deck?
Well, let's see if we can answer that question for you as we take a look at the deck list in front of us. I do not believe so.
One.
He's got one. Okay, excuse me.
Which is really well suited for this spot because he wants to be able to cast Wrath of God or Anger of the Gods. He has a Colonnade in hand. I'm a little surprised to see him get this land. This seems like a good spot for Sacred Foundry because then next turn you can cast either Wrath of God or Anger of the Gods as the situation warrants.
Well, here is Nahiri. Starts on 4, up to 6. One of the things I like about Nahiri as well is that the plus ability, you don't have to discard. Yep. So if you do discard, you get to draw a card.
Well, this is a very surprising line for me here in terms of getting the Steam Vents, because now he's discarded the Colonnade. He doesn't have double white anymore.
So Wrath of God's going to be difficult to cast.
Yeah. Potentially. He's certainly drawing to a lot of white sources, but I think in this spot he'd prefer to be discarding lands. He doesn't really want to keep an extra one, so I don't know exactly what his color mana demands are. I guess if he has Cryptic Commands, that's the reason he got Steam Vent. So he has access to triple blue rather.
Well, here's Inquisition. And you see the hand of Path to Exile, not great against Lingering Souls, Wrath of God, and Anger of the God. So this can come back and actually hurt Kuehl, because he's in a situation now where, my Anger was the plan, and now that might get taken away. Because I don't really see a lot of reason for Ferguson to take Path, but I guess he's got a threat that he really wants to cast.
I think he's just putting a lot of he wants the ability to hit with Shambling Vents, I think is the deal here.
All right, fair enough. Here comes the Shambling Vent along with some tokens. Nahiri down to 2. Let's go Darryl's way. For Kuehl, he's going to tick up Nahiri. Up to 4, discard Wrath of God. Draw a card. You can see just how important it is to search out specific lands with the fetch lands in Modern. It may have felt like a minor thing at the time searching up the Steam Vents as opposed to the Sacred Foundry, but it might be coming back to hurt him now.
Well, it's not a straight mistake because, again, it's do I want to be able to cast Wrath of God next turn, or do I want the ability to cast Cryptic Command if I happen to draw it? That's the decision he has to make there. But yes, even for decks that are fetching duels all the time, the colored mana is still a bit of a squeeze.
Another Inquisition here. It looks like there will be a response here from Kuehl. Maybe a card like Snapcaster Mage has been found. Looks like that is what's been found. See what the target will be. Looks like the target is Lightning Bolt. Anger of the Gods down. Last card in hand there is a Hallowed Fountain. One card that Ferguson actually does have in his hand right now is Disfigure.
Though my expectation here is not firing up the Shambling Vent this turn because the Bolt is now on flashback. Just use the Lingering Souls tokens to tax Nahiri, use the Disfigure to kill the Snapcaster Mage, and then the Bolt takes care of a Lingering Souls token, which is not that bad for you.
Yeah, and he can actually just kill the Snapcaster Mage whenever he wants to. Like, he doesn't have to do it now. He's got the Disfigure. It's just here he's going to fall down to 3. Here's a tough Planeswalker to kill, man, with chip damage. Stuff like that, because the +2.
It's a lot of loyalty.
Yeah.
It's a lot to play through this thing.
Let's go back to Kuehl. Draw a card. Can push that loyalty up to 5 if he wants to. Looks like he does. He'll discard. There goes Hallowed Fountain. Draw a card.
And Kuehl's deck draws to so many spot removal spells and cryptic commands and such to protect his Planeswalker. And Ferguson's deck is not very good at pressuring.
There's an Arid Mesa and just pass the turn back. Let's go back to Andy.
I mean, even with just one more land, Kuehl's entering a spot where he can just use Colonnade on defense to check everything that Ferguson's up to.
That's true.
Keep plussing the Nahiri, and soon you're at Emrakul.
Yeah, the tough thing, too, is that Nahiri is just this huge shadow in the game, right? 2 more activations, all of a sudden Emrakul's here, and this game's basically over. Mm-hmm. So you have to kill this thing.
And even though the Shambling Vents, it is doing some work here, it's only keeping Ferguson at parity when it comes to the loyalty, and it's so much mana every turn. It's 4 mana for him to fire up that Shambling Vent and attack. And on top of that, Kuehl's drawing to 1,000,000 bolts in his deck to get it off the table.
Mm-hmm. What do we have here? Something for 2 mana. The question is what? Looks like it's going to be Smallpox. All right, interesting. A 2 mana response, Mana Leak.
And even this is not bad here for Kuehl, because if Ferguson pays the 3 mana, he can't attack with Shambling Vents this turn, and then here he's up to 7.
I'm going to see if he wants to fire up the vent now. I think it's pretty safe. 2-3 against a 2-1. Yep, he will fire it up. Come after Nahiri, you have to imagine. It's like we're playing a weird sub game right now. Mm-hmm. Darryl's trying to protect Nahiri to get to Emrakul, and Andy is basically going every way he can to get it off the battlefield because he has to. Kuehl going to sacrifice Arid Mesa, fall down to 12. See what land he wants to search up.
I like Kuehl fighting over the Smallpox in that spot. He's going to lose the Mana Leak regardless, so it's a freebie to counter. But a Stone Rain there is pretty bad news because Kuehl wants to get to 6 mana, so then Colonnade on defense is his manner of protecting his Nahiri. You know, if Ferguson bricks next turn, he can't attack at all unless he's willing to just lose the Shambling Vent to remove 1 loyalty off the Nahiri, and Keel's position becomes pretty overwhelming at that point.
Kuehl almost searched up another Steam Vents there. I think he actually wants a second source of white mana this go around. Perhaps we'll see the Sacred Foundry.
Yeah, he already has his triple blue for Cryptic Command. So yeah, you would want to be able to cast your double white spells.
There's the Foundry.
Also, he wants to make sure he can activate the Colonnade off of any land he happens to draw. So
let's go back Darryl's way now.
And now Ferguson's in this pretty awful spot where everything Ferguson has is a land or a spell. In some ways, that Serum Visions there is the best case scenario for Ferguson because it's a spell that doesn't do anything, but it's also not untapped land number 6 for the defensive Colonnade.
Nahiri going up. Steam Vents down. Draw a card. Spell Snares the draw. Good card to discard to Nahiri next turn. Might be effective this turn as we head back Andy Ferguson's way. He'll draw. Didn't get a great look at it. Looks like it may have been a Smallpox, though. And it looks like the Vent is going to shamble on over again. Ferguson just trying to figure out how he wants to tap the mana to activate the creature land. So there it is. Here come the beatdowns going after Nahiri. It's a slow process to kill this Planeswalker, and that's what makes it so powerful. Pass the turn back, Will Ferguson. Over to Kuehl. Kuehl will draw. Up to 5 goes Nahiri. Time to discard. There goes Spell Snare. And there's the 6th land. This is what you talked about.
Yep.
One of the nice things, too, it's minor, of course, but for Darryl, he doesn't have to actually sacrifice that fetch land because there's Nurborg over there for Andy. So it can actually use that Scalding Tarn to tap for mana to be able to activate the Colonnade. Swamp there for Ferguson. But what's also kind of unique about this situation is I think that this Disfigure might take Darryl by surprise because what the heck is that doing in there? Oh, well, Lightning Bolt's even better, jeez. timely.
I think the plan there for Ferguson was fire up into the colonnade, assume that Kuehl will take the spot to block the shambling vent, and then use Disfigure to take care of it.
Absolutely. What he had not planned around, his Lightning Bolt taking care of the shambling vent, which really reduces the clock on taking care of Nahiri. And again, we're in this kind of weird sub-game where these two players are playing Magic, but it's a battle over the Planeswalker because what the Planeswalker can bring to the table, as we saw in Game 1, that's Emrakul, a game winner. And Ferguson has just not really been able to supply the pressure to get the Planeswalker off the battlefield. And to Darryl's credit, he's done a nice job of kind of blunting Andy's pressure.
There just aren't a lot of Planeswalkers like this in Modern that have a lot of loyalty and also end the game on their own. I mean, you know, there's Planeswalkers out there like Gideon Jura that can be really problematic to get through, come into play with a lot of loyalty and so forth, and they have matches where that card's powerful, but the ultimate isn't progressing towards win the game, and it doesn't happen so fast.
Nahiri up to 6 as we head back Ferguson's way. Just a Spirit Token from Lingering Souls. We know he's got a Smallpox at hand, and he's had that Disfigure in hand for some time now. In comes the Spirit Token. Does Kuehl have any interest in maybe firing up the Colonnade?
I think Ferguson is planning on playing Smallpox, so this is just going to happen regardless.
Okay.
He's going to lose the token regardless, so this is just a bluff attack here.
Yeah, but this is nice because you actually get to kill the Colonnade here. Yeah.
Very sharp line here from Ferguson.
Not the biggest thing in the world, but with the order of this card, each player loses a life, discards a card, so I believe both players will be empty-handed, sacrifices a creature, so there goes the Colonnade, and then each player sacrifices a land. So it's important to recognize the order of the card. A little value there from Ferguson on his way out the door. He gets to sacrifice the Flagstones.
Nice.
So he gets to get a little more white mana. And oddly enough, that actually does set Kuehl back a little bit. Now, that said, both players are empty-handed, and Nahiri is here on an empty board.
I'm not sure if Ferguson has an out in his deck to Kuehl just plussing and getting Emrakul next turn. I suppose the Emrakul isn't technically lethal. Ferguson will have some lands left in play, and he won't die. And if the Nahiri's off the battlefield, then okay, we play on. Not a great spot to be in, but I guess he's not technically out of it.
Maybe Kuehl draws the Emrakul?
That can also happen. Yeah. Although I think Kuehl, it's possible if the Emrakul doesn't kill Kuehl, you'll see Kuehl go up to 10 loyalty on Nahiri before getting Emrakul, so we can just start doing the same thing again.
Kuehl's draw for the turn was Nahiri. He activated the Nahiri he has on the battlefield, plus it, discard the Nahiri that was in his hand, picked up a Colonnade, which is the land for the turn. For Ferguson, he'll just pass the turn back, so we will go back over to Kuehl. Is it time to search up the Aeon's Torn is the question, and he is certainly thinking it over right now with his hand on his head.
He's got more of an incentive now to pull the trigger than he did last turn. Now with a Colonnade, if Ferguson goes down to 9 and has one land, hard pressed to imagine. Okay, or that can happen.
Yeah, or he can draw the Emrakul right now.
Okay.
And screw everything up.
Well, I think it was close whether or not to plus again or ultimate this turn, and the draw step decided it for him.
Yep. All Darryl can do is shake his head and laugh a little bit. Now, the one question here is, how do you resolve this? I think that's what they're actually stopping for a little bit is, Nahiri, he tried to resolve two abilities at once, right? Yeah. He discarded Emrakul to Nahiri, but he didn't draw his card. So the Emrakul effect goes in the stack. I believe you have to resolve the Nahiri first completely because you can't resolve it halfway, shuffle Emrakul in, and then resolve the rest of it. So you should have drawn first, and then the shuffle should resolve. So I believe our table spotter is going to help sort that out. Honest mistake there by Darryl Kuehl. Yeah, they'll get a judge ruling on that, and we'll come back to the booth in the meantime as they will get this small situation sorted out. But as we do come back into the booth, Center Phillips, Patrick Sullivan here from Indianapolis with the SCG Tour. We talked about right at the top of the show what kind of effect Nahiri would have in this tournament. Nick Miller stopped by the booth before we went live and said, looks like a lot of people are putting Nahiri in the Jeskai decks and a bevy of other decks as well. And if this particular match is any indication, this thing's the real deal.
There's a lot going on here that is new to Modern. A ton of loyalty. Not easy to remove with the removal spells that people play that do target, bolts and decays are not effective against Nahiri, and quickly gets to an ultimate that wins the game. Yeah. And a lot of the more durable planeswalkers in the format, you can leave them in play for a long time and they're not necessarily winning the game. Even things like Elspeth Sun's Champion. It's like, okay, That's powerful, but that takes a lot of turns before you win the game.
Yep.
Here, you get there in 3 turns while you're fixing your draw step. Also, you get access to main deck artifact and enchantment removal, which is nice in this format because a lot of the decks that sort of try to punk you out game 1 often involve artifacts and enchantments that a lot of people don't have removal for. So just having an easy way to get things like, Blood Moons and Trinispheres and random other stuff off the battlefield game 1 is nice to have. When you're under pressure, the minus power, you can exile creatures that way. It's a very powerful package for only 4 mana. The biggest cost for this card for standard level play, it's kind of awkward to build red-white control decks.
Very tough.
But the mana in Modern is so good. Jeskai is already a deck, and you can probably build Mardu decks, I would imagine, with this card, and Lingering Souls is part of your payoff.
Yep.
So I think we're going to see a lot of this card in Modern. I think we're going to see a lot of it in Legacy and Miracles builds that are already splashing red.
Yeah, I think Joe's already doing that.
Yeah, your Imperial Painters of the world could easily see incorporating this card. So even though I think it's going to be lower on the list in terms of standard representation of the Planeswalkers in the new set, I think for Modern and beyond, this will be one of the biggest players in the set.
Now, one thing worth noting on the minus ability here of Nahiri, you'll see exile target enchantment, tapped artifact.
Smooth.
So Trinisphere, as you mentioned, you can't kill that one unless it's tapped somehow. You can't kill cranial plating, which is a little bit weird. There are some weird things about the fact that it's exile target tapped artifact, where some artifact, a card like Pithing Needle, can't kill that one. Something like that will come up, and then, of course, exile target tapped creature, which will come up quite a bit when you're trying to defend yourself a little bit. But there's a lot to like about this card. Again, the loyalty is a real main draw, but also as you're working your way towards Emrakul, as you mentioned, you're fixing your draw step, which is a pretty big deal because there'll be some nonsense in your hand, and you just want to work your way towards that big hit. Their board's gone. It might kill them, it might not, but you're probably far enough ahead at that point that you can clean them up with something.
Yeah, I mean, usually you have a Planeswalker in play for 3 turns, so it probably means the game's pretty stable. You get an Emrakul hit. No, that's not a lock, but you should be a pretty heavy favorite unless something crazy is going on.
I would hope that's the case. So this, again, is something to like. And again, we felt coming into the weekend, we were going to find out exactly where this kind of card fits in. Mostly Jeskai decks. You mentioned Mardu. Maybe some heavy blue-white decks with just a small splash of red for a card like this. You can do a lot of different things with this card. And, I was kind of skeptical because a lot of the deck lists, and especially the one we have in front of us from Darryl, the one Emrakul sticks out like a sore thumb. Obviously, because it's in a Jeskai control deck, and what the heck is this doing here? But again, it's just not hard to work towards. And so it's a real deck building cost. Don't get me wrong, it's a 15 mana spell. They probably normally can't cast in 99% of their games. But if it's this easy to work towards, and you just have to defend, and then boom, I kind of like it.
It's possible in the beatdown matchups you just get rid of Emrakul and you look at Nahiri as mostly there for the -2 power to stabilize the board. And in the spots where Nahiri's run away with the game, your Snapcaster Mage getting back Electrolyzes and Lightning Helixes should be enough to beat your opponent as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think you have to be married to the Emrakul being in your list and in your deck in every single matchup. But for matchups like this, you're seeing Ferguson's doing a lot of powerful stuff, and he's generating a lot of card advantage. And he's keeping the battlefield on the other side mostly clean. But he doesn't have an answer to Nahiri, and Nahiri's ultimate happens so fast and gets a game-winning card. And you can see Ferguson's really floundering to handle this, even though every other axis of the game, it looks like he's generating a pretty huge edge. It's hard for the Jeskai deck to generate a lot of 2-for-1s. Cards like Smallpox and the discard spells have been problematic. You have Shambling Vents, so you're not exposed that heavily to Wrath of God and Anger of the Gods. There's a lot to like on Ferguson's side of the matchup, but Nahiri has been a huge problem both of these games.
You mentioned Hero's Downfall. Might have to find some space. Like we said, if this card becomes the real deal, and again, we're watching 2 games where it's been pretty good thus far, we might see a little something happen. So back down to the feature match area we're going to go. They've cleaned it all up now. Game rules violation of 5-minute extension is the ruling from our head judge. So an honest mistake there by Darryl, as he has now drawn, obviously shuffled the Emrakul back in, all of that jazz, and we might see the Eon's Torn next turn. In the meantime, here's a Serum Visions. That'll draw a Mana Leak, and now Darryl will have to scry 2. If Emrakul's in there, I would not leave it on the top.
Good one.
Thank you. You can't get anything by me. So the scry is resolving here with Serum Visions, and now we're going to head back Andy Ferguson's way. He'll draw a card. Looks like he's drawn some discard here in Thoughtseize. Not a great spot for your boy.
No, it's not looking good. Nahiri is pretty new on the block, so not surprised to see Ferguson's deck have this kind of vulnerability, but I think there's going to be some lessons learned after this.
Thoughtseize will be countered by Mana Leak. It was Darryl's last card anyway, so you might as well just cast it, and if Andy wants to pay for it, feel free. Now Darryl will draw.
I wouldn't Mana Leak it. I would just make him take the 2.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, actually, that could matter. Put him down to 22.
Well, you Emrakul him down to 7, and then your Colonnade kills in 2 hits instead of 3. I don't know. Maybe Ferguson has something big to do with the mana left over. I don't know, but it seems like not a lot of value to be gained by mana leaking there.
Well, here comes Emrakul. And so long as Darryl doesn't miss the Annihilator trigger, as Andy's going to take a look at the big creature. You're not going to like what you read on the other side there, Andy, I promise.
You know what the problem is about this, too?
Well, what's that?
It just happens again in a couple turns.
I know. I know. That's actually the part I kind of like about it.
Yeah.
It's very conceivable to hit someone twice with this in a game.
I guess I shouldn't say Ferguson's completely unprepared for this matchup. He does have Flagstones of Trocare. Very good. Very good to sacrifice to Emrakul.
Great way to rebuild things.
Right.
Yep.
But on the balance, I think he's a little short.
Yeah. I'm inclined to agree. Emrakul's going to come back to the hand now from Nahiri.
Yeah, I'll sack these lands, stupid.
Andy going to pass with just the Godless Shrine. We might see Snapcaster Mage here in just a moment. Not just yet from Darryl.
Darryl can just go ahead, Snapcaster back the Serum Vision, and then loot away the Emrakul.
Mountain the draw for the turn. We'll see a Nahiri activation, it looks like, here in just a moment.
I think Darryl right now is deciding, do I want to Snapcaster Serum Vision, or do I just want to fire up the Colonnade?
Yeah, this is another one of those situations, as here's the discard of Emrakul. You got to draw the card first. Now you shuffle back in. I think this is a situation much like we saw a little bit earlier in the tournament where is Darryl really far ahead and like 95% to win the game? Yes. Yep. You just want to make sure that that other 5% doesn't come up. For example, if he fires up Colonnade and then it gets pathed, okay, that stinks. And then, you know, something else could happen. All of a sudden, Nahiri's off the battlefield. It gets needled or something. And then, maybe things get difficult for Darryl.
Yep.
So you just want to make sure nothing goes wrong. He's a heavy favorite to win, but you don't want to screw anything up.
Yeah, if you're in Darryl's seat, you definitely would not say, I'm 100% to win this game right now. Game's still going on.
And he will just draw and pass the turn back. Serum Vision's the draw. We'll see if Serum Visions is the play. And there is Serum Visions. So Kuehl will draw. Scry 2. Up to 6 goes Nahiri. And discard Arid Mesa, draw a card. Electrolyze the draw. And Darryl will just pass the turn back. Ferguson will draw a card. It's a disfigure, I believe. He'll just have to simply pass the turn back. Got to be agonizing here for Andy. He's not going to concede.
Yep.
Because there is a series of cards he could draw. And one of the cards actually in his hand is Path. So there's a series of cards that he could draw to conceivably get back in this game. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible. There's Snapcaster Mage on the end step. Disfigure will take care of that. Kuehl will draw. Picked up a Plains. Here comes Colonnade now. He'll serve on in for 4. Ferguson's going to fall down to 3. Nahiri up to 8. Discard a card. There goes Spell Snare. Draw a card. Pass the turn back. And we said it feels like just a couple turns ago, but it's not hard to reassemble the Emrakul, and that's exactly what Darryl would do. So Andy Ferguson will concede the game, and Darryl Kuehl will win this match over your boy Andy Ferguson. 2-0. Just got control, takes care of Black-White Pox, but more than anything, that was a demonstration in the power of Nahiri.